going to quickly demonstrate how to install Rybbit, the open source and self-hosted analytics platform, to a virtual machine, in this case an EC2, and then expose that publicly with a domain name of your choice using Pangolin, the tunneled reverse proxy platform. So the first step is to make sure you have a virtual machine or a server to run this on. For me, I'm going to use a EC2, but you can use a virtual machine from Hetzner or DigitalOcean. And the nice thing about Pangolin is you don't need a public IP address. So some cloud providers will charge extra for a public IP. You could run it with a private IP, and you also don't have to open up any ports on the server that you run Rybbit on. So if you're at home, if you're behind CGNAT, you don't have to open up ports. And if you're on a virtual machine, you also don't have to open up the firewall. In terms of other prerequisites, you need to be able to SSH into your virtual machine. You also need to install Docker on that virtual machine. You can use this get Docker script to do that very quickly. And then finally, if you use Pangolin, you don't actually need a domain name because we provide free domains of your choice, and you can have a persistent subdomain. Or you can buy a domain, and I will show how to attach your own domain to the instance as well. It's pretty simple. After getting all that set up, then you can go to the Rybbit docs. So here on the website, there's a link to the docs, and then scroll down to the Quick Start Self-Hosting Guide. We can actually scroll through all of this top part, which is discussing the prerequisites. We don't need to point the domain to the VPS because Pangolin is our reverse proxy in this case. And then finally, we've already installed Docker, so we can move on to cloning the repo. So I'm going to copy this command, go to my instance, and then run it. And you'll see it's going to pull down all the contents and then go into that Rybbit directory here in a moment. Now we can take a look at what it downloaded. So in here we have a Docker Compose file, and then in the Docker Compose file, we want the Docker Compose YAML, not the Docker Compose Cloud YAML. Here there's a caddy server, ClickHouse for the database, there's Postgres, there's the backend, there's a client as well. So we're actually going to first just remove caddy because we're going to be replacing this with Pangolin instead. And then the next step is going to be to set up a Pangolin site so we can actually get connectivity into this machine. In this tutorial, I'm going to use Pangolin Cloud, but you can also fully self-host Pangolin for free on any VPS of your choice. Pangolin Cloud also has a free tier with free domains, and you can even bring your own domain to the free tier. And the free tier should cover everything you would need for deploying and exposing Rybbit. Now I'm going to add a site. I'm going to call this Rybbit, and then choose the Newt installation method. And then under here, I'll select Docker, and then copy the code snippet for the Docker Compose. Then I'll create the site. And then I can go back to the Docker Compose that I was just in. And then at the top of the services, I'm just going to add this Newt container. And then I can go Docker Compose up -D, and then Docker Compose logs follow. Oops, there was actually just a typo there. So it's going to pull down the containers, and then it's going to fail to open up the logs, but I can go back and just make sure that we can do that after the case. Looks like everything's started up and is healthy, so I'm just going to check the logs now just to make sure we're all good. And you can see here, I think these are okay. That's natural. The backend started, and then somewhere up here very far, yeah, it looks like Newt started up. I already had an old version of Newt running or pulled down on this instance. That's what you're seeing here, but this is successfully connected to one of our cloud instances. Back in Pangolin under sites, you can now see that my Rybbit site is connected and online, so I can move on to creating a resource. The resource is where I can point a subdomain to that Rybbit instance and handle the actual traffic routing. So I'm going to call this one Rybbit as well, keep subdomain, and then I'm going to choose a free provided domain. For this one, I can type in any subdomain, and it will show me a list of available free domains that I can use. So for this one, I'm just going to do Rybbit, and then go with, let's do rybbit.tunnel.2. And then I'm going to leave the targets blank for now, and I'm actually going to come back to this in the next step. So I'm going to create the resource. Back in the Docker Compose, you'll notice there's two containers that are important here. There's a backend container that runs on port 3001, and then there's a client container down here that runs on port 3002. So we need to create two different targets, one to route all requests going to the /API route to the backend, and then all other routes go to the front end. So I'll create two targets here. I'm going to first route this one to backend on port 3001. And then also I'm going to match all paths based on a prefix and do actually I'm going to do regex. I'm going to do /API/ with a star just to mean that anything that comes after API will be matched to this pattern and routed to this target. I'm going to save the changes. You'll notice this is going to also get routed to that Rybbit site that we just created. I'm going to create one more target, and this time route to client and call this, or put this on port 3002. And then I am going to also increase the priority of this one to just be higher than the client, so that way requests go to the backend first before going to the client. But that actually should work without this. I'm just doing that to be extra careful. Then I'm going to scroll down and save these settings. We also need to create an env file for Rybbit so we can tell it to use the domain name of our choice, as well as configure other environment variables. So for this, I'm going to copy the already created example env file to another file called .env, and I'm going to edit .env. And here I can change this to the domain that I chose. So I'm going to go with Rybbit, but I think I spelled it wrong, .tunneled.2. And I can leave all these defaults the same. Then I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then I can restart the stack with Docker Compose down, Docker Compose up to bring everything down, then bring it back up. Now I can go to this URL, a new tab, and you'll see I'm taken straight to the front end for Rybbit. And because I'm already logged into Pangolin, I was also passed through the authentication straight to the Rybbit login page, so I can log in and sign up here. With Rybbit specifically, you're going to want to disable Pangolin's authentication. This is because requests need to be able to hit the Rybbit server in order for you to send analytics from your different websites. So just go to the authentication tab, toggle off use platform SSO, and then make sure to save roles and users, and then go back to the proxy tab. Back in Rybbit, you can click sign up and then go through the onboarding flow here to create your account, and then it'll give you your actual code snippets that you can embed into your client applications to start sending analytics. So for example, I can sign up here with my demo credentials, click next, I'll create my account, and then I can set up a first organization. So for this one, I'm just going to call it landing page, and then create. And then my first domain, we'll just go with pangolin.net, and then click continue. And then I'm taken to the setup page for this new website that I've created in my organization. I would just need to go and copy in the needed code snippet here into whichever front end I'm using. So if I'm using Next.js, I could copy in a specific script tag for the Next.js layout, but there's tons of different integrations here, so you should be covered no matter what you're using. I did just notice that I actually spelled the subdomain wrong and I typed Rybbit, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to now try to connect my own custom domain to Pangolin so I can serve this from any domain of my choice. So I already have a domain purchased through Namecheap, and I have access to the DNS server here. So in Pangolin Cloud, this is a little bit different if you're self-hosting Pangolin. So I'm going to show the cloud version. If you're self-hosting, by this point in time, you probably would have already set up the domain. So you should be good to go. But in the cloud, you can go to the domains tab, click add domain. And then for this one, I'm going to use a CNAME. The difference here is the CNAME is for one specific subdomain. So you can think only one application. The domain delegation is if you want to provide a wildcard of a subdomain that you can then use for multiple applications. For this, I'm just going to go with CNAME because I find it a little bit easier to use. And then I'm going to type in my full domain of choice. This time I'm going to make sure that autocorrect does not ruin the spelling. Click create, and then it's going to give me a couple CNAME records, so I can copy the name and then go to my domain registrar, add a new CNAME record, use that as the host, and then use this as the value, create one more, then set this one as the host, and then finally this one as the value. And then I'll go ahead and save it. It will take sometimes a minute or two for this to propagate and for Pangolin to pick up on the changes. We will try to update this as quickly as possible, but you can sit here and click refresh until it changes from pending to verified. Okay, it looks like the domain finally verified. So in resources now, I can change this domain to use the new one. I'm going to edit it, go to the general tab, select edit domain, and this time choose my new CNAME record. And then I can now save it. In a moment, it'll update. I'll have to fetch a new certificate. Sometimes this will take a moment. Let me just refresh the page. Okay, it looks like it's valid, so I'm going to open up this in a new tab. Okay, and now since we changed our domain, don't forget to also go back and edit your .env file and use the new domain, which is now ribbit.pangolin.2. And go ahead and save this, and then you can restart the containers. That's it. That's how you self-host Rybbit with Pangolin. Remember, I used Pangolin Cloud, but you can also use the self-hosted edition of Pangolin.